These days, everyone is eager to make a revenge thriller. The success of the John Wick franchise has many folks thinking of ways to make their own contributions to the world of gritty, realistic action movies. Enter Dev Patel. Known well for his stints in emotional dramas, this time he's not only emoting, but writing and directing his entry, which is inspired by the Hindu deity Hanuman. It's Monkey Man. I'm Ronald Young Jr., and I'm leaving the theater. All right, this is Ronald, and I am leaving the theater after seeing Monkey Man. Monkey Man, written by Dev Patel, Paul Angunawela, John Coilee. Directed by Dev Patel. Starring Dev Patel, Sharlto Copley, Pitobash, Vipin Sharma, Sikander Kher, Sobhita, Dhulipala, and Ashwini Kalsekar. I am not here alone.
No, you're not.
I am here with
JC Howard. What's up?
Together once again. I don't know if you heard that roast from Nicole Hill. She says, I am your favorite guest. And she was like, I'm your favorite guest of all guests. And I was like, you're gonna get me in trouble for my other guests.
Yeah. No, listen, I am the favorite guest. It's like the Highlander. There can be only one, and I am the favorite guest.
Well, if each of you call yourselves the favorite guest, then it's all good as far as I'm concerned.
There you go. It's like your kids, right? Like you can't have a favorite kid unless each kid is your favorite kid.
Correct.
In which case, then it's all good.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's how I'm operating. Yeah. Monkey Man is a revenge thriller about a young man who is infiltrating an organization, a club or something in order to seek revenge for a wrong that was done to him in the past when he was a child. It has hints of John Wick. It has hints of basically every revenge thriller you've ever seen in some ways. And it also brings nothing new to the table. No, let me stop. I started the review too early. JC Howard, what did you think of this movie?
Okay, so first of all, let me say, brutal. It was bone crushing, blood squelching. Yeah. It gave me shades of Tarantino with all the blood that was in it. But it was Dev Patel. So this is the thing. I am a Dev Patel fan.
I also am a Dev Patel fan.
So this, I feel like, was an opportunity for Dev to be an action star in his own right, which I think he took. He was the center of this movie, yes. And it revolved around him in the way that it should have. This was also an opportunity to do something new with the genre, especially when you have the acting talent of someone like Dev Patel, and I don't think they took that opportunity nearly as much. It wasn't exactly about the rampage itself. It was more about the man. So the comparison to John Wick, I do appreciate that because, first of all, the palettes, the colors, everything was very John Wick. But I will give it that it focused more on the man than it did on the rampage. But the question is, as you kind of alluded to, did it add anything else? And I don't think it did.
I don't think it did either. I think this was a movie where, again, I love Dev Patel. I'll watch him in anything. I don't even know why. Like, if they're like, oh, Dev Patel's in it, I was like, I'll give it a shot. You know what I mean? I really enjoy watching him. He's a very emotive face, which you enjoy watching act. And you believe him when he acts. Like, my favorite movie that I've seen him in is probably Lion. And there's a very small reference to Lion in this movie, which if you catch it, I was like, I see what you did there. It was just one line. But that being said, this movie, I remember standing up and thinking, this is Brutality, the movie. Like they really went hard with the squelching and the liquid gushing and all of that. And it wasn't quite Tarantino because Tarantino likes to make it a cartoon. Right. And this was just not a cartoon. This was like, oh, this is very brutal what's happening here. And I wasn't having a good time with some of those parts.
Yeah, no, it felt too real in a lot of ways.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, like that is the thing about Tarantino is that there's so much blood in Tarantino that it's like, this is just not how blood behaves coming out of the human body. With this, it was like, no, that's about how it would be. Yeah. Like it's thinning in the right places. It's like pooling in the right places. This is slightly uncomfortable, which I appreciate as a device, right? Like as a thing to say, like, let's make our audience a little bit uncomfortable, but to what end, right? Yeah. Like, I don't feel like we were made uncomfortable to any given end to say, like, look, this is the brutality that he faced exactly. It was just like, no, this is brutal almost for the sake of brutality.
Yeah, I felt that same thing. I think one thing that I think that this movie suffers from, knowing that Dev Patel directed it, is I think it has some pacing issues. I think there is a montage that comes far too late in the movie for me to believe it. And I think there's ways in which the fighting starts in the beginning and goes to the end. There are scenes where, because it says story by Dev Patel. And I feel a lot of story. There's 3 writers on this film, which tells me that someone came in to fix this. But when you see that the story was by Dev Patel, I imagine that he went in there and says, there's this guy, he grows up with his mom, and Hanuman is involved, and then he's fighting in a monkey mask. And I feel like there was some stuff in there where I'm just like, this isn't as connected as you think, and I don't know if we need this. And I think that really like bogs the movie down in a lot of ways. It made me like, it took me out of the movie in some cases.
Yeah. No, I think that's exactly right. And I think you're spot on with, I mean, and this is something that I've heard from interviews with Dev Patel about this movie, is that, I mean, it's almost exactly as you said, is that like he kind of grew up with this story of the monkey man and the Hanuman, I believe is how you say it. Yeah. And
Black Panther.
Yeah, exactly. It's that same type of thing. And there is even that scene in the movie where he almost is imbued with the powers of the monkey man in some ways. Yeah. And so that is exactly kind of how it came about. And then someone else kind of came in and was like, let's action movie this up in a lot of ways. And it was like, to me, it felt like, did we need it to be punched up? It felt like, did we need it to be punched up in the ways that it was punched up? I don't think we did. But, you know, again, I will say I'm very glad that Dev Patel gets this opportunity because, like, even if this movie, I don't feel like it was exactly for me. I mean, as you said, there were pacing issues. You know, it feels like it didn't really take off until like 40 minutes into the movie. But I will say it was still a vehicle for Dev Patel. And for that, I appreciate.
I think it needed to be one movie or another. And I think when it became the movie that I really started to enjoy was in the last third of the movie, which is like weird because I feel like the last couple movies, it's been the first 2/3 have been great and the last third has been terrible. Whereas this one, I was like, that last third, I'm like, all right, I'm in. Like, you're doing kind of what I expected you to do from the trailer and kind of from the purpose of this movie. Like, you start off with that type of brutality from the beginning, and we just never quite got to it. The only thing that I said that kind of made me say, huh, and I'd love to know other opinions on this, was the use of queer folks in this movie was very akin to magical Negroing, if you got my drift. Like, I was sitting there watching it, and I'm like, are the queer folks in this movie only to make sure that the hero gets to where he's supposed to go? And there is a kind of a gratifying scene involving them, but almost in some cases, it was almost so brutal that I'm like, I don't know if this is the type of violence that these queer people would enact as a sort of vengeance. I don't know if it was. And that felt kind of unusual to me.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think that it's very... And I think that that's kind of where the Tarantino connection also kind of invokes itself with this idea of like a revenge, you know, revenge for the marginalized people in this world.
Yes.
And I think it does that. But again, I couldn't see that it did it to any satisfying end. It was just
to what end?
Yeah. It was almost just to check the box to say like, look, we also did this. We like, it's not just about this one main character guy, but it's about these other people who are like kind of getting their, I don't know, getting their chance at kind of revenge. I will also say is that like for me, it was the second third of the movie that was like, okay, I'm really in this. The movie did promise what you got in the third act. And I appreciated that. I really, like, that was more of the John Wick, like actually living into that kind of thing. But that middle third where he's like kind of off on this almost spiritual quest, I really kind of appreciated that, because I was like, okay, like he's not just some guy who's been impacted, who's been traumatized by this event that happened in his past, but he's a man on his own journey. And that middle section really gave you him on his own journey, and that I appreciated as well. Again, probably because you just get more Patel being Patel.
Yeah, and I think maybe a stronger director, and no disrespect to Mr. Patel, but maybe a stronger director would have allowed Dev Patel to just be Dev Patel in the movie. I will say that if this is his foray into action, he does have a future. He has the physicality. Yep. He moves well. There were lots of ways in which I'm like, when people see this, they're going to be like, ooh, even if he just pulls clips from this to audition for other things, I think he's in good shape. So I mean, I appreciate that as well.
He broke his hand, actually.
I know. I've heard the lore of that.
Yes, it like that is and apparently it almost shut down production of the whole movie. So, like, for that, again, many flowers go to Mr. Patel, but not exactly for the directing and for the movie as a whole. But as a lead man, he's got it. So
with all of that being said, what do you rate this movie? Out of 5 stars here on Leaving the Theater? We rate out of 5 stars. I know you love the decimal system. It's like your favorite thing.
Yeah, I mean, you I think you could see it in my face that I was like parsing the decimals. Like, where am I going to put it? I think I'm going to give it a solid 3.2. And 3 of those points are just for Dev Patel.
I agree. I think this is a 3.25.
Yes.
Yeah, so
we're on the same page for the first time in God knows how long. Okay,
that's not true. We've been on the same page several. We were on the same page in the last couple of movies,
but numerically, usually our numbers are anyway. I feel like I'm right now.
We're within tenths.
I agree with Ronald. That's like I'm right. Yeah.
No, actually, it's data shows that people like it better when I disagree with my guest. So this actually might be a lowly rated episode.
Then I give it a 5.
Okay. Just get out. 3.25. I think it works because, like, I think there was parts of this. You know, I saw Challengers yesterday, and I think being able to say in my head that I knew that Challengers was a 3.5 movie, I actually liked Challengers a little bit more than I liked Monkey Man, which is unusual for a person like me who loves action movies. I love seeing punching and kicking, and this one just didn't quite do everything I needed to do. But again, the Dev Patel of it all meant that, like, for me, the floor was 3 stars. You're absolutely correct. And it could have got to 4 easily with a much better story and maybe better pacing and all that, but it just didn't quite do it for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry, Dev, but good job.
And with that, Leaving the Theater is a production of OhitsBigRon Studios. I am mixing this episode. And once again, I solicit your monies through patreon.com/leaving the theater. If you're listening and you're like, man, that echo in the back could be cleaner, or wow, that wind sound isn't cleaned up as much as it could be, just remember, I'm the one mixing this. I'm a producer. I am not an engineer. That being said, you can help us work with engineers by going to www.patreon.com/leaving the theater, or go to the link in our show notes. Show art from Heather Wilder. Theme music by the mysterious Breakmaster Cylinder. For more information about Monkey Man or JC Howard, check out our show notes. You can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, or Threads at OhitsBigRon. That's at OhitsBigRon. You can find out more about this show and other OhitsBigRon Studios shows by following us on Instagram at OhitsBigRon Studios and on Twitter at OhitsBigRon Stu. That's STEW. Leaving the Theater will be back soon. Thanks for listening, and thanks for being on the show.
Thank you for having me, 3-time Ambie Award winner, Ronald Young Jr.
That's a different podcast universe.